How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video on 5 cheap and fast diesel hot hatchbacks that have insane fuel economy, and all of them can be bought for under £5,000. I recently did this video at £10,000. I asked if you'd give me 1,000 likes and I'd do it for under 5, and here we are. Let me know your thoughts on diesel hot hatchbacks in the comments below. I personally prefer petrol ones, but that's just personal opinion, and I do appreciate the torque that these cars give. Remember that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and don't forget that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that stuff is important to remember. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoy the video, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's kick this video off with a car that I've mentioned in a couple of previous videos now, the almost iconic Skoda Fabia VRS with its hallowed PD130 engine, which is a 1.9 litre turbocharged inline 4 which puts out 130 brake horsepower, 310 Nm of torque, and takes the car to 60 in 9.2 seconds. Now 9.2 seconds doesn't sound particularly quick, and it isn't, but it has shown in independent tests that it will do 7.1 seconds to 60 stock, and its in-gear performance is exceptional, beating even the E90 series BMW 330i from 50 to 70 miles per hour and matching the Lotus Elise from 20 to 40 miles per hour, although that's a slightly unfair comparison considering the Elise gets into its power slightly further up in the rev range. The key benefit of this as well is that you get that performance with great fuel economy too, at 53 miles per gallon quoted, while long-term reviews and owners note around 46 miles per gallon. It was the first ever diesel hot hatch that didn't have a petrol equivalent, and I personally am a fan of how anything considered to be unnecessary on the interior of equivalents from VW, Audi and Seat has been removed, as the focus on giving the car a no-nonsense feel, letting the performance do the talking. It also means that the interior remains relatively inoffensive even though it's been around for almost 2 decades. I'm of course partial to a Skoda Fabia as it was my first car, but I do think the VRS is aging well, as its looks have never been shouty, but people in the car world who know about these know they're beasts, especially when owners know they can get 160 brake horsepower with the remap and 200 brake horsepower with a bit of tuning very easily. If you're a diesel head, this is definitely a great cheap car to think about getting into then, especially if you like modifying. The lowest I can find these listed for is around £1,700, whilst £5,000 will get you a 2006 example with around 100,000 miles on the clock. These have been proven to go well over that mark with generally very good reliability, as some owners have mentioned hitting upwards of 200,000 miles and a minority going even further than that. Watch out for the turbo boost valve, front wishbone bushes and interior fans, all of which are known issues. Next up is the second generation Seat Leon FR with its 2 litre turbocharged inline 4 making 167 brake horsepower and 350 Nm of torque, which gets from 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds. It's also quoted as doing 55 miles per gallon. It sits on the same platform as the Mark V Golf, but visually it does actually look very different, with sharper angles both on the exterior and the interior, though both do feel relatively similar overall. Some people have noted that it has a similar design language to Alfa Romeo's, which is likely because the designer, Walter de Silva, was at Alfa Romeo before being poached by Seat, and he was responsible for the 146, 156, 166 and 147. Sadly, there isn't a diesel equivalent to the Hotter Cupra, which comes with a petrol engine, hence instead we'll stick to the FR for this video. FR actually stands for Formula Racing, and in terms of trim, it's literally just a step down from the Cupra, who are actually an entire division at Seat that make those faster models. Using VW as a reference point, FR is to Cupra what GTI is to R. Hopefully that makes some sense. But don't assume that makes the FR any wetter. Not only has it won awards like Diesel Car of the Year in 2006, it also benefits from lower, stiffer suspension, nice alloys, a more aggressive body kit and interior, and a focus by Seat on handling, which is exactly what you want out of a hatch at this position in the market. It's basically aimed at providing maximum fun on B roads, which does mean that it might suffer elsewhere, as I did find some owners complaining about just how stiff that suspension setup is. It's gotta be said though, having been in one, I am a fan, though the one that I was in had a literal clause in the owner's manual that its warranty wouldn't cover driving on the Nürburgring specifically. £3,000 is the minimum that I could find these listed for, and at £5,000 you're looking at a 2010 example with around 80,000 miles on the clock. Make sure injectors were replaced on these, as many were recalled for problems. You can call Seat and tell told them the reg number to find out if yours has or not. DPFs have had problems too, and many have suffered from their central locking failing, which is consistent among many VW Group cars. In third on this list is the second generation Audi A3 Quattro with its 2-litre TDI inline-4 putting out 167 brake horsepower, 350 Nm of torque, which gets it from 0 to 60 in 7.6 seconds, so basically the same specs as the Seat, which makes sense as they share the same platform and engine, just as the Quattro benefits from all-wheel drive as the name suggests. It has got slightly less fuel economy though at 50 miles per gallon, which is still pretty nuts. So the second gen dropped in 2003 but received a facelift in 2005 that swapped out that front split grille for a larger one piece that is more like those we see on modern Audis today. Sadly, Audi at the time were not putting diesel engines into S or RS models, but this is basically the next best thing, as it still benefits from the same basic formula: a sportier body styling in S-line spec, as well as more premium interior, Haldex all-wheel drive which jumps in when you need it, the S-tronic automatic box as an option, and generally sportier offering. Worth mentioning that if you want this to be all-wheel drive all the time, you can get a Haldex controller relatively easily, which will enable you to manage where the power goes. You can get it as either a 3-door or a 5-door, otherwise known as the Sportback, which has slightly increased space for passengers in the rear and a larger luggage compartment. It's almost at estate vibes. If you're in the US, you'll only be able to get one of these in Sportback spec. It's worth also noting that there was a further facelift in 2008, which changed up the front and rear styling with a slightly different grille and additional aesthetic changes. You'll find these listed for £2,000 at the bottom end, with £5,000 getting you an 08 example with around 80,000 miles on it. Both the Seat and Audi can suffer from a pretty catastrophic engine failure, which comes as a result of wear to a sprocket on the oil pump. It's very hard to work out when this might happen, so it's worth replacing the oil pump if you get one of these. The car isn't known for its reliability sadly, so maybe not one to go for at this price range. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, make sure you hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. I wanted to say a massive thank you because last month was my best month ever on YouTube, so yeah. Onwards and upwards, I guess. Taking second on this list is probably my favourite looking car of the bunch, the Volvo C30 D5, which is a 2.4 litre turbo diesel inline-5, which makes 177 brake horsepower, 400 Nm of torque, and a 0 to 60 time of 7.5 seconds. The car does suffer from a fuel economy perspective relative to the other cars on this list though, at 45 miles per gallon. It was based on the Volvo safety concept car, but what I really like about the C30 is that it's like Volvo actually knew they'd designed something very pretty from day one, as they launched the car with concepts at SEMA, showing the art of the possible for different tastes. The production car dropped in 2006, and ideally if you want something sporty, aim for one with the R design package, as this modifies the interior and exterior to be sportier, with aluminium features on the interior and a more aggressive body kit with a spoiler. One key feature in this car is not the performance but the sound system. Volvo offered 3 different levels: performance, high performance and premium, which uses an insane Alpine system, so you'll be listening to crisp sounds while blitzing it in this quick diesel. And you'll be pretty safe too, as part of Volvo's marketing strategy is to major on the fact that their cars are so safe. The C30 literally won the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's Top Safety Pick award and has received impeccable safety tests. Not that you'll want to be putting it in a wall, obviously. The interior is basic but has everything you need, and my favourite part of the car is actually the rear hatch. The window is such a nice shape. This is the most expensive car on this list, starting at around £4,000 at the bottom end, and £5,000 will get you a 2009 example with 90,000 miles on the clock, so still pretty high. In general, owners are very complimentary about the reliability of these cars. There are some known problems though, such as the electronic stability control failing in older models, which can be expensive to fix. Other gripes I could find included the boot being too small, making it a pretty impractical car, as in it's pretty and also impractical. Some owners also mention it's not as strong in gear as some of the other cars on this list, so recommend getting a remap to overcome this. Taking the top spot is definitely a fan favourite, the BMW 123D, which has a 2-litre twin turbocharged inline-4, which makes 201 brake horsepower, 400 Nm of torque, and does 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds. It's also quoted as doing 55 miles per gallon, not bad at all. This was the first generation 1 Series, which did also come as a coupe and convertible before they were split out into the 2 Series for the following generation. I personally am a massive fan of the coupe, but as this video is about hatchbacks, let's stick to those. I think what's cool about this car is that it's a rear-wheel drive hot hatch, unlike the majority of cars in this segment, which are front-wheel drive of course. This is, of course, in line with the majority of other BMWs, which have only recently been given all-wheel drive options more broadly. It's got quite a basic interior, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just not quite as fancy as some of the newer BMWs, and I would highly recommend getting an M Sport example simply for that more aggressive body kit and styling. Plus, they're much easier to resell than non-M Sport examples, given they tend to go for similar prices. Also, the car comes as either a 3 or 5 door, and though I personally absolutely adore the 3 door, the 5 door does have that added layer of practicality that might be important for those of you who want to go fast but have a family. To prove the car's performance, Schubert Motors took the Motorsport Edition 120D and sent it out on track for the Nürburgring 24 hours. And it wasn't just for fun, of 220 cars it came 5th overall, beating cars with practically double its power. £2,000 the minimum that you'll find these listed for, and £5,000 to get you a 2010 example with 90,000 miles on the clock. The key problem with this car is that N47 engine, which is great in terms of power, but is renowned for excessive timing chain wear and early failures. This can literally mean it's time for a new engine in the worst case scenarios, or at least an expensive repair, which is never fun. The worst affected examples are from 2007 to early 2009, so if you get a 2010 example as mentioned, you'd likely sleep slightly better. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it. Massive thanks to the patrons as always for their continued support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.